Do eat your vegetables. Don't eat yellow snow. Do tell people when they have food in their teeth. Don't tell them their haircut looks bad. Do stop and smell the flowers. Don't draft these bums in fantasy football. Producer, hit that button. Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Forecast with Grindberg and bigz. I am bigz, he is Grindberg, and Schultzy is producing. We are here to talk about guys that, in our humble estimation, you should avoid in your redraft leagues. Do not draft them. They're not worth it at their ADPs, or they're just not worth it in general. You don't want to have to deal with their headaches, their problems, what have you. It's just going to be something that you don't want to do. And how are you guys doing?
Well, I'm not doing too bad here. It's the week before the inaugural Fantasy Football Expo, so be sure to get down there if you aren't headed down there. Please look into it. Sellout Crowds is the main sponsor, so be sure to check us out there at the expo. But
I do want to say, so yesterday I completed my Scott Fishbowl 16 draft, and I managed to go 20 rounds without drafting anybody that's on our list today, except for one. And that I'll no spoilers, but it's Schultzy's newest edition.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's a spicy one. Okay, then Schultzy, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. We need to have one disclaimer here. Big said to eat your vegetables, but do not eat the fresh vegetables. Please buy them frozen. We do not need to be spreading the diarrhea.
Sure, that's a good caveat for today.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're Canadian.
Yeah, I've got a healthy fresh vegetable section. I go to the store and there's nothing wrong going on here. We got a country on fire, and all I hear is you guys complaining about the smoke. But that's just what it is.
Right, that's how the winds work, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. I don't complain when your California smoke comes up here. Doesn't matter. It don't matter.
On the talking
that's because
heads.
It melts your ice a little bit.
Oh.
Some diphead on the talking heads, like there was an alert that the AQI was bad, and he's all, "Don't tell me what I can and can't do. This is a free country." Like, nobody was telling you not to go out and get lung cancer. By all means, go for a 5-minute walk in your yard and breathe all that in. But nobody's telling you not to. They're just saying, hey, you might not want to.
Well, we're here to tell you something not to do.
You might not want to draft these guys.
Yeah, exactly.
We're here to tell you what not to do.
All right, before we get into that, though, quick shout out to one of our sponsors, Fantasy Spin. If you want a different kind of fantasy experience, Fantasy Spin lets you spin your lineup, make your picks, and compete in tournaments based on real player performance. Check the link in the description, pin comment, use promo code FORECAST, deposit $10, and play at least one tournament and get $30 and bonus play. Now, we've heard the warm-ups, we've heard the plugs. Now we're getting into, the ADP here. Based off Fantasy Pros, where guys are going, and we don't want anything to do with these guys. So, bigz, why don't you start us off with your first guy, who you're fading, who you're not picking up this year, and why?
So, the first guy that I'm going to talk about is Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice. First of all, there is some ambiguity with who's going to be playing quarterback to start the season. Patrick Mahomes is likely going to be the starter week 1. That's fine. If that happens, then hey, hooray for Rashee Rice. If he's not, then we're gonna count on Justin Fields to be leading the show, and Rashee Rice is going to be counting on him to do that. The other thing that we have to talk about is Rashee Rice's legal history. So he's not a good dude. He's got some baggage, and there's a very distinct possibility that he could lose some time lose the season, get convicted of something. Something very wrong could happen with him on the legal front. And we've talked about this before. So I'm totally avoiding him in my drafts. There are guys that are going behind him like Devontae Smith, Breece Hall, Trey McBride, Chris Olave, Zay Flowers, even like Emeka Egbuka. There's a long Malik Nabers. There's a long list of guys who I would much rather draft that will be less of a headache than having to worry about Rashee Rice. Now, does Rashee Rice have elite per game stats in fantasy? Absolutely. He's one of the like biggest per game guys, but you see last year he played 8 games. The year before he played 4 games. The year before that he only started in 8 games. So your per game extrapolation of 17 games, he would probably be in the wide receiver 1 conversation. But there's nothing that you can build a foundation on. There's nothing that you can count on, especially at his ADP. You're talking about taking a second round pick or an early third round pick, and there's a lot of guys out there that I would much rather have. So do not draft Rashee Rice. Do not eat yellow snow.
Yeah, I mean, at wide receiver 12, that's that's wide receiver 1. That's them already not really baking in the situation around him, like you mentioned, all the red flags there that are around him. Guys like, Smith, you mentioned, Flowers, Egbuka, Nabers. Nabers has got his own question marks around him.
I'd still take the chance.
Lad McConkey, Jaylen Waddle, these guys, I'm taking them right now just because of the floor, probably more security here, and there you go, Schultzy.
And the other thing, so he's going at number 25, so he's basically like third round first pick. I talked about guys that are going after that I would rather have, but imagine a situation in which somebody like a Chase Brown, an AJ Brown, a Brock Bowers were to fall to that spot. That's who I'd want to pick. Everybody's sleeping on AJ Brown. They don't think he's going to have a good year. They see Drake May regression coming or whatever, but he's got a job, and as long as he stays healthy, which he doesn't really have a whole lot of injury concern, he's going to be the wide receiver 1 on that team for 17 games. Rashee Rice doesn't have that guarantee. So if AJ Brown falls to you in that spot and it's AJ Brown or Rashee Rice, I'm taking AJ Brown every time.
Oh, of course. Yeah. AJ Brown's a top 5 wide receiver this year, I think, with the situation there. So, yeah.
Well, you and I are on the same island then, because it's an island.
No, I think there's a lot of people on AJ Brown having a monster year. If you look at what happened last year with Drake May and his like what he did, and you can only just think of, giving him what Stephon Diggs for routes and targets. This is going to be the biggest, target earning year he's ever had, in my opinion. And it's a prolific offense now, and I think they're going to, not spread the ball around. I know people are worried about Drake May as known to be a guy that spread the ball around, but he's never had a guy like AJ Brown before. And yeah, you could have some concerns about his knee and whatnot, but yeah, I think that the money's there, and this is a redraft smash.
We'll have that discussion on another show, and after we get done with this one, I'll let you in on a little bit of stuff.
All right, let's move on to my guy who I'm fading here. And going through the running backs, this is a tough one. I mean, this is probably a good spot for him. I think it's still rich for my blood. The former first rounder out of North Carolina. I'm talking about Ryan Hampton, and he had some explosive early games. He's got that receiving chops as well, but that ankle fracture exposed a harsh reality, and he never looked quite the same after his return. I know he's young and he's going to be there, and I like his upside here in an offense that is going to be prolific, and I think that I've got the Chargers as a top 5 scoring offense, so why wouldn't I be in on Hampton here? But I think there's a little bit more to uncover here. Mike McDaniel is calling plays, and yeah, that means great upside here, rushing breakout story, premium pieces here, all in place here. But we look at what he did, and he wanted a guy. He wanted Keaton Mitchell. I think he's going to be his little mini HN. I'm not going to say he's going to play as much, but there's going to be some change of pace weapon here. And Kamani Vidal also proved last year he's going to be productive, and Jim Harbaugh has long favored committee approaches with rotation to keeping backs fresh. So I think he's going to have a little bit of hands here on the play calling. And I've been burned in the past by second-year RBs, with those shiny tools and the coach speak, but that proven durability, the locked-in volume, often is an expensive regret. And I don't want to regret this. I see guys going behind Hampton and guys like Kenneth Walker, Chase Brown, Brees Hall. These are all guys that I'm a lot higher on this year, and I would be taking over Hampton at this stage of the game right now. And highlights aside, his rookie inefficiency has been exposed. He just averaged 4.4 yards per carry. That's not great, and that's a good sample size there too. He's going to probably fall in the end zone quite a bit there, but I still think there's a floor here that is not what these other guys I mentioned before you have here. So I'm fading him a little bit here. Probably, I'd be picking him around the RB 13 or 14 range, but RB 10 is a little expensive for my blood.
The efficiency numbers are kind of what I'm looking at. He's going to have around 250 carries to get to 1,000 or 1,100 yards. Not a lot of touchdown opportunity. Only had 4 touchdowns last year. Of course, he only started in 6 games, so that's not totally out of the realm. But then the other thing that you look at is he had 32 catches on 35 targets. That means that he's basically a dump down guy. He's not in the receiving game. So it's Justin Herbert dumping off to him a lot. 35 targets, 32 receptions, that's not terrible. I mean, that shows that he does have some receiving upside, which is a cheat code at the running back position, but he's not involved in the route tree. So there are some red flags. There are some nice things to like, but you're going to be counting on 250 carry and 70 target volume to get him to the numbers that he's been being drafted at.
He's going to need to fall in the end zone at least 12 times too, I think. And I think that could be a possibility. But yeah, I think that he's capped here a little bit. I think Keaton Mitchell's going to get some of those dump offs that you mentioned there. And I think he's going to be more of a in between the tackles guy, between the 20s, and maybe even rotated out of there in the red zone a bit. So we'll see. All right, Schultzy, let's get into your guy here.
All right, I talked a little bit about him a couple weeks ago, but I think I'm full fade territory on Jonathan Taylor. We saw a huge workload last 2 seasons, and that gives me some concern for him holding up here coming into 2026. The Colts have already said they want to limit this guy's touches, and part of the what brings RB4 ADP is the massive workload, right? And so if the team is telling us they want to back that off, that's concerning for drafting him at RB4. I think the offense is going to struggle coming back here, recovering from this Daniel Jones injury. What is this going to look like? What's his return going to look like? What's the offense going to look like as a whole? So I'm not expecting the offense to chug along like they did, especially in the first half of last year, where with this new system, or getting dimes into this new system and getting it all rolling with defenses didn't really know what to expect. They were steamrolling people early that. That's not happening coming out of the gate here. So that's a huge concern for the viability of Jonathan Taylor. And now I've heard people say, yeah, he's coming into a contract year. Now, typically that's a great thing for someone, right? They're trying to test the open market and they're yelling at teams, give me the money. Well, he's already said he wants to be a Colt for life. So that's not a dude who's out here trying to get all the money in the world. So he's not using his that's not the motivator here for the contract year argument. The contract year argument is solely, I'm going to be the best player out there. So some team is going to offer me something crazy and my team's going to match, or I'm getting that money, right? So I don't think that's an entirely applicable argument in this case. And then for me, lastly, when you look at the guys right behind him at the running back position, give me James Cook, give me Ashton Genty, give me Saquon Barkley all over Jonathan Taylor, who are sitting at running back 5, 6, and 7 right behind him. So full fade territory here for Jonathan Taylor for me.
Absolutely. And the Mish Orbuin and Weedlewin grown. The other thing, and you brought up the first half of last season, that was schedule dependent. We talked about it on our shows last year about when to expect the Colts to completely fall off a cliff. And it was because of their opponents that they faced in the first half of the season. And we tracked it and we called it, and it exactly happened the way that we anticipated. So the schedule's going to shape up differently this year, and there might not be a period of like 8-9 weeks straight where they can like go off. So we'll have to see. But yeah, I'm in full agreement. 626 carries over the last 2 years, and hitting his age 27 mark with 1,551 total attempts in his career. That's a heavy workload for a guy who's been in the league for, this will be his 7th season.
He racked up 18 touchdowns last year. If we don't think the offense is going to hum along like last year, he's not getting in the end zone 18 times.
Yeah, I mean, that's a concern, but I'm not fading him completely to the way that you guys are. I think he's still in that range. I still have him ahead of some of these guys. I think, if you look at what's going on here, the Colts are going to ease Daniel Jones back in, and what's happening with Alec Pierce, his ankle injury. The team is going to be needing to do something out of the gate, and what are they going to do? They're going to rely heavy.
Yeah, they're going to go 3 and out.
Yeah, no, they're going to be relying heavy on Jonathan Taylor. I'm telling you that right now, and he's gonna do well. Like, I mean, you looked at the end of last year is because Daniel Jones was out and their offense wasn't humming as well. So I think that this is,
You telling me it was a Philip Rivers problem?
yes, it was. It certainly was. It absolutely was. What was he doing when Daniel Jones was there? We were talking about a top 7 offense, and the Colts were on the verge of making the playoffs until Daniel Jones went off, right? So
post bye week, he didn't even top 20 points, and they had a week 11 bye.
Yeah, I'm saying, because we look at the start of the season when Daniel Jones was playing, it's a different. You flip that script, and we're talking about Jonathan Taylor as a top 3 back. Like
but check this out. There's 2 games there with Daniel Jones, and they were both against good teams, and he crapped the bed twice.
But I mean, if you look at the other scope, he's 4 touchdowns in those games. So I'm not fading him to the range that you guys are. I think he's still a pretty good, pick at that stage. But I'm just, you guys both.
He does have 69 career touchdowns, and that's nice.
Pretty nice.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to your next guy, Biggs.
My next guy, Josh Jacobs. We got another guy who's as the kids say, long in the tooth. But that's really not why I am saying do not draft Josh Jacobs. Just like Rashee Rice, there is some legal concerns out there. The Green Bay Packers have retooled their wide receiver room, which means that they're trying to kind of adjust what they're doing with this offense. Their roles are being more strictly defined than they have been when they had 6 guys that they were running out there in rotation. They're going to be throwing the ball deep to Christian Watson. They're going to be throwing the ball mid-range to Jaden Reed. They're going to be throwing the ball around the line of scrimmage to Matthew Golden. They're going to be hitting Tucker Kraft all over the field. They're going to run the ball. But there's a chance that Josh Jacobs isn't going to be on the field week 1. He has some DV charges that he's staring at, and there could be things that come to fruition before the season starts. That's what's kind of scaring me. Now, some alternatives. I'm looking at Cam Skattebo is being drafted right behind Josh Jacobs. I would rather have Cam Skattebo anyway. I would much rather have a second-year guy than a 28-year-old. Then we got Luther Burden. Nobody's higher on Luther Burden than Mike right now. Mike Evans, he's a downfield guy. Colson Loveland, elite tight end numbers he's going to be giving you. Devontae Adams, he's going to have a big year. There's a lot of alternatives where Josh Jacobs is being drafted, and I'm going to take those instead of the 28-year-old guy with legal problems.
Yeah, I got no argument here. I think there is, that steady upside that he brings, and he's aging a little bit, and there are some concerns. There are some safer options in those ranges. So yeah, I'd be certainly more willing to take the safer option with a little bit more upside when we're in that range there. So Schultzy, what do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree. There's just a lot here to deal with, and when you look at the guys like bigz was mentioning, that you can get right around here in the ballpark and behind him, I think this is an easy fade. I know the offense is going to, I mean, they're going to be good. I'm not going to say they're going to be great elite, but they're going to be good. And he probably, and in all likelihood, he'll get his share. But if he doesn't, and he gets into the legal trouble, and like all of a sudden there's a big suspension, like you're dead in the water. And when you can get quality dudes that even without a suspension, we may like better. Yeah, I'm going to go with the other dudes.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was an easy one for us to get through. So let's get on to the next guy here. And I'm fading here. Tetairoa McMillan, and it's really plain and simple. The big Arizona product. He certainly, posted respectable numbers as a rookie, but there's one elephant in the room here, and that's Bryce Young. That inconsistent play in Carolina's offense kept him ceiling firmly in check, and we all know. I mean, Schultzy, screams that at the top of his lungs. Bryce Young sucks, plain and simple. He remains widely inefficient as a passer, drags the entire offense down with him, and I have little faith that year 3 suddenly turns him into a competent quarterback. McMillan is a complete alpha with elite size, hands, and contested ability, but man, Bryce Young sucks ass and makes every route feel like an uphill battle. So I'm just saying that it's a tough one for me buying into that sophomore leap at wide receiver 14. Yeah, there's warning signs here. The film metrics are there, but I just think that, his price is a little bit too high here, with Bryce Young kicking the can down the road here. The inefficiency killer, poor accuracy, low completion percentage, and inefficient Panthers offense limited his deep targets and red zone opportunities. I think it's going to continue this year. So I like guys that are going behind him. Zay Flowers, I'm completely all in on this year. Devonta Smith, Emeka Ibuka, Terry McLaurin, Lad McConkey, and Jaylen Waddle are all guys. Luther Burden, who I also are really high on, are guys that I think that are going to outscore him this year. And that's a hefty list, I just based off of what I think Bryce Young brings.
And even with that said, like, I have to give McMillan some flowers here, because as much as we're slamming Bryce Young, it's so true, because there's multiple times last year that McMillan absolutely bailed Bryce out, right? Because just an awful ball, and this guy goes and makes a play. But this is screaming what we talked about with Marvin Harrison last year. Like, everybody wants the jump, but there's stuff holding him back. And if we see pretty similar to what we saw last year, like, don't be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big thing that stands out to me right there is the catch percentage of 57.4. That's not a wide receiver problem. That's a quarterback problem. If you think about it, he had 122 targets and 70 receptions. Let's just distill that down to 100 targets, and we'll drop it down to 58 receptions. That's about the same catch rate. If you get 100 targets and everything is on target and goes to your hands, and you have a 2% drop rate, we're talking like you're making 90 plus of those catches. Mm-hmm. The catch percentage on a wide receiver is quarterback related, not wide receiver related. So this is a Bryce Young issue, and we don't kink shame, Mike.
Right. All right, Schultzy, give us the heat here.
Okay, I feel like I got a controversial one here with Malik Nabers, but I hear everybody's argument that the price has gotten baked down. We're down to wide receiver 17, 40th overall. This is still a round 4 pick in a redraft league. And when we're talking about coming back from this major knee injury, like, that's it. That's a big concern for me. Like, this isn't Dynasty where you get the rest of his career. Like, only thing that matters is the next 13 games, right? We have no idea what this is going to look like coming out of the gate. All we know is he's going to, and here's the quote. So he's expected to work his, quote, way back into practice as training camp gets started in one way or another. What does that even mean? That is so ambiguous. That's as ambiguous as you could make a statement, okay? So Harbaugh over here is not giving you anything definitive, and that's concerning to me. We've had talk of potentially putting him on PUP, which automatically loses the first 4 games of the season, which automatically loses 30% of your fantasy season. What is a 4th round pick doing for you who automatically doesn't play 30% of your games? He's tanking your season at that point. Like, you just can't have that from a 4th round pick. You say, well, what happens when he comes back? Okay, well, what happens when he comes back? He's in a new offense, and he's not going to practice much. And we don't even know what practice and training camp's going to look like for a guy learning a new offense, for a guy who's played less than 1 games of snaps with his quarterback in his career. We don't know what practice and training camp's going to look like. Okay. In 2024, when Malik Nabers went off, saw 170 targets. His quarterbacks that year attempted 590 passes. Lamar's highest pass attempts under Harbaugh in his career is 474. That's 116 pass attempts difference. I don't know if Jackson Dart's going to cross 474. I don't know what it's going to look like, but we're not getting to dang near 600, okay? So there is a huge problem. There's a big volume. Instantly, there's a volume issue. So 170 targets, kiss that goodbye. 1, we may have missed time. 2, the offense is not holding on to that. We saw Zay Flowers get about 100 to 115, somewhere in there every year. I think Marquise Brown popped 1 year at about 135. So what's the ceiling in targets look like for Malik Nabers in a Harbaugh offense? Now, I know this is a much more premium talent, right? Like at the position. I just don't buy a path where we're hitting 170 targets again, okay? And then add that in with the injury, add that in with all this new learning, new offense, new quarterback, and we might not even be practicing in training camp. I'm not touching this guy. When you could sit here and look at wide receivers behind him, you could take Lad McConkey and Garrett Wilson and Luther Burden. Like, I'll draft all 3 of those guys.
I like this take a lot because, like you mentioned there, if he starts the year on the PUP and then goes on a slow ramp up, it might even be like week 7 before we actually see him do anything. And for a 4th rounder, if your team can hold up and then he comes back and then he can, but you say that concern there, he's not, he probably won't earn those huge target shares that he was getting, like 11 targets a game. I think his rookie season he was earning, like, on average. That's a monster.
If he lands on PUP, you cannot screw up anywhere else in this draft.
Yeah. So
like, you can't absorb another blow.
Yeah. Biggs, anything to add to that? Are you with us here?
No, I absolutely appreciate Malik Nabers' upside. But this is not the year that he's going to hit it. If he had played a full season last year, he'd be a 1st round pick.
Absolutely.
Now he's going in the late 4th, or sorry, in the early.
If he was even full go, like 100% health to open training camp, entirely different story.
Yeah. So late 4th. There is a little interesting tidbit that I'm going to get to, but we'll do that when it wraps around to me.
All right. Well, if you rock with FSAN, then the Pro Plus
I rock with FSAN.
You rock. Well, this is where you go all in. Head down to FSN.com, subscribe, get the FSN Pro Plus membership for Jersey League entry, a free rookie guide, 10% off our shop, and all the exclusive content that you need to win your league. So hit us up there, FSN.com, get your Pro Plus membership and reap the rewards here. All right, let's get into our spotlight.
If you're a first-time watcher or a long-time watcher, one of the things that helps us is engagement. So if you like us and you want to help the program, go ahead and subscribe, hit the bell, comment, send us comments. Comment. We will comment back. Tell us if we're wrong. Tell us if we're right. Argue with us. Tell us what your takes are. What is your do not draft list? That really helps the show, and we're just reaching out.
We're throwing it out. Okay, well, let's reach out.
Okay.
let's dig deep, Biggs. Let's get into our spotlights, and you're up first. So, Schultzy, let's roll this clip, man.
But not that.
bigz! Grindberg!
Timing.
I don't like that one. It's bigz, not Grindberg. Also, all right. I noticed this little thing because I'm sitting here staring at the ADP rankings. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we just rang off 3 in a row: 39, 40, 41. Mike had Tetairoa, then Schultzy had Malik, and now I have Jaylen Waddle. They're all right there, boom, 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 in the ADP ranks. I thought that was interesting. Anyway, all right. So Jaylen Waddle, he has always had, since his rookie season, a wide receiver one perception. That's what I'm thinking of. Everybody has always looked at him as a potential wide receiver one. And part of that is he comes into his rookie year, he has 140 targets, over 100 receptions, over 1,000 yards. Everybody thinks, oh, he can replicate it. He has 29 fewer catches the next year, but he doubles his yards per reception. They changed how they were using him in the offense. He had 18.1 yards per catch in 17 full games in his sophomore season in the NFL. And then it was just kind of the Dolphins never really got back on that same track. I believe that Jaylen Waddle is not as good as everybody thinks that he is, or at least what the perception is. I think he's a very good wide receiver, and I think in the right situation he could have potential. Do I think that the Denver Broncos are that right situation? I do not. Last year, Courtland Sutton had his second straight year as a wide receiver 13 or 12 finish. That's a wide receiver one spot. Jaylen Waddle had around 100 targets. That's about replicating what other guys. Troy Franklin had over 100 targets in that Denver Bronco offense last year. Bo Nix, we know, runs the ball a lot. They have 3 running backs that they're going to try and get the ball to. Jaylen Waddle being drafted inside the top 24 as a wide receiver, if he shows the least bit of aggression, you overdrafted him. The least bit of regression, you overdrafted him. Does he have the opportunity to jump into the top 20? Probably, but it's going to take focus on him, taking away focus from all the rest of the pieces in the offense. Troy Franklin and Bo Nix have a relationship. They played together at Oregon. They played together in Denver. Courtland Sutton has 2 years with Bo Nix. They have a thing. You've got J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. They just drafted the kid from Washington. There's a lot of mouths to feed in Denver, and part of that wide receiver core is not necessarily going to grow, especially if Troy Franklin and Bo Nix keep their same relationship together the way that they had last year. Now, if Sean Payton's purpose of going out and signing Jaylen Waddle was so that he could take over Troy Franklin's role from last season, then yeah, we're going to see Jaylen Waddle have a pretty similar year to what he had last year, where he finished wide receiver 21-ish. But if anything happens where his volume decreases just a little bit, he's not going to return your investment. So I say do not draft Jaylen Waddle.
I'm going to push back a little bit. I mean, I think Waddle's as mad as you right now. Look at his face in this picture right now. He is really frowning. And to me, I mean, you're very savvy in your takes, and I just think that this is the smash year for Waddle. I think this is his year that he's gonna, show what he's capable of, and I think that some underlining things here is like Denver is now handing the play calling duties over to Davis Webb, and that's a signal of a faster paced offense. And I think that Bo Nix is already showing, he was visibly, frustrated last year with the slow decision making and the play calling. So I think this scheme is tailor made for quick releases and explosive plays downfield. And Waddle, he's got that elite speed, that yak ability, and I think is going to be perfect in this attack. And I think that, he's going to be in 3 wide receiver sets, 2 wide receiver sets, and he's got a history of alpha level efficiency. He was just in the shadows of one of the best wide receivers that we've seen play the game in the last 15 years. And
oh, really? In 2025, Tyreek Hill had Jaylen Waddle in his shadow?
No, I'm just saying in like I
Oh.
mean look at the Dolphins last year. You're talking about a train wreck team, and now you're putting them on one of the best offenses in the league in a more high powered offense that is going to be running a lot more plays than you think they are. And
For
they
a
just
lot more people than just Jaylen Waddle.
1, 2, and 3 draft picks, round draft picks. They traded for this guy, Biggs. I'm just saying I think he's going to be a top 15 wide receiver this year, and I'm not afraid to take
Ooh, okay.
value.
We'll
So
put a pin in that. Shout out former California Golden Bear legend Davis Webb.
I'm a little
Schultzy.
bit in the middle here as you guys. Like, I see a path. You've seen Cortland Sutton post a high, like top 15 last 2 seasons. So why can't Waddle step in and do that? But I also understand the argument. A lot of mouths to feed. We're not vacating targets. We've only added in the backfield. So that I have some pause there.
Well, you're saying why can't they both? Or why can't Waddle if Cortland Sutton did it? Well, if Jaylen Waddle does it, that means that they're both going to do it.
Well, I don't think that's true.
So do you see Cortland Sutton having a reduction in his volume so
Yes.
that Jaylen Waddle?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Oh,
Huge,
you think
huge.
that a wide receiver is going to accept fewer targets without sulking, without creating drama in the
He's been
locker
a
room,
drama
all that
for them
stuff?
in the past, Biggs. You don't think he's
I'll say
he-
do
like-
that. That's
like-
his own
Right,
problem.
and when they gave him 135 targets, like he became a top flight wide receiver when they actually started throwing him the ball. I don't think they want that smoke. And I did.
I don't think Sean Payton gives a crap.
If you rewind the tape, I did say if things break right, he could be a top 15 wide receiver. I did say that.
Yeah.
I did
and
say
I think
that.
they're going to break right. I
I'm
don't
just
see
saying
the
that I
downfall
don't
here.
think they are.
Yeah. All right, let's get into my spotlight then.
See, and you get like the little funky jazzy.
Okay, well, I'll change your music up then, Biggs. I thought you'd like that one. It was
said
a
that a
song.
month ago.
All right. All right. Well, pick up your stuff then and get some stuff done too for the show, and you could rock out your own videos. All right.
I do
Right.
exactly what I'm asked to do.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I'll talk about Nico Collins a little bit here, and wide receiver 7 is certainly a hefty price for me to pay. I know that what they did in the offseason here, the Houston Texans, is they restructured contracts, but they also added some new faces. And I think that David Montgomery anchoring that run heavy scheme with that elite defense that's going to be controlling games, I think that the passing volume is going to look capped. And Jaden Higgins and Jaylen Noel, I think, are going to emerge as second year guys. And I think Tank Dell's going to return to health. So I think there's going to be some serious competition for some targets. And I know that Nico Collins is an elite separator, great at yards per route run, one of the top 5 in the league. I just think that, wide receiver 7, there's a couple safer options for me when I think of where that offense is headed. And I think that CJ Stroud has struggled as a processor, and I think they're going to be a little bit more run focused and trying to secure him a little bit more as a game manager like we saw later in the season last year. And I just think that ADP coming off of this year, there's certainly a bunch of guys that I would like to take above him. AJ Brown, Drake London, Chris Olave, Zay Flowers are all guys I'm drafting ahead of Nico Collins at this stage, and more so based off of just their run heavy offense that I envisioning, and their tight defense that are going to keep these games low scoring, and their play clocks pretty short here. So yeah, that's my take on Nico.
Give me all the Monty.
You know that we have always loved Nico Collins. And I feel like if you were to go back and watch every single episode that Mike and I have ever done of the Fantasy Forecast, you would watch this progression of our love for Nico Collins, our love for Nico Collins, our love for Nico Collins, and then he peaks, and now we're starting to go the other way. But let me just say, I think you can say that for a lot of players, because with players, you can like a player, It's all about the right time to own them. There have been other drafts where we would have invested heavily in Nico Collins, and look how it would have paid out in 2024, 2026.
Yeah.
This is not that year.
We've been on Nico, and I just think that, with the progression of that team, I just think that, like we saw what he did 2 years ago, monster season, 3 years ago, even better. And I still think we're looking at about 1,000 yards here for him. But that's not wide receiver 7 overall. You know what I mean? So I think we're paying the price for his ceiling right now. And I'm not sure he hits that.
Yeah. And we love us some Jaden Higgins.
We certainly do. I think he's going to have a huge breakout this year too. All right, Schultzy, let's get into your guy.
Well, we've got a classic mix-up here because I wrote Christian Watson on the show sheet, and I think bigz put McCaffrey on the end of it.
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't?
No,
how did this happen?
Oh, you put Christian, and I just assumed it was McCaffrey. So, like, that's all it was.
Did I forget to put it?
I thought when I looked at it, it said Christian McCaffrey.
His last name's in there now.
Okay.
I put Watson. Regardless, I thought bigz did it as a joke.
No. I thought Christian, and I was like, oh, I thought you were fading McCaffrey. And I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be fun.
No. I'm not doing that. I'm not that dumb. It's funny because in the show sheet right now, it literally says Christian Watson McCaffrey. So, anyways, I'm gonna talk about Christian Watson. That's hilarious.
Have you been in an accident? Call Christian Watson and McCaffrey.
That's incredible. So bigz was just talking about the timing, right? In Dynasty, especially if you went and like tried to buy oh my God, I just said McCaffrey. If you went and tried to buy Watson right after the season, like that was a great time to do it. If you were like, hey, look at some of this usage starting to ramp up. We see some vacated targets on a guy who's catching some deep balls, and maybe he gets some more targets in like the intermediate game and stuff. He signs a contract, and everything gets blown out of the water the moment that happens. So I went from early offseason being, this is a dude I was very interested in having pieces of this year, to I'm not drafting him now. We've pushed him up to 52 overall. Okay. So he is a round 5 draft pick, wide receiver 27. Highest finish he's ever had, wide receiver 41. And that's 4 seasons of work here. What's the number one predictor of fantasy success the next season? Fantasy points prior.
Bo Nix is your
and he's never finished above wide receiver 41. Big concern, big red flag, right? I get the vacated targets. I get that there will be an uptick for Christian Watson. I still firmly believe Tucker Kraft is hands down the alpha of this offense. I mean, the run game is going to be a big important part, but I think Kraft is the alpha target-wise. He's the alpha physically. Like, you just watch the team play, and that's the alpha on this offense. So I don't think it's just Christian Watson stepping in, and we're drafting him as if that's the case. He is getting, like I said, drafted at wide receiver 27 right now, and I believe he's getting taken over Tucker Kraft himself, which I think is crazy. Looking at dudes who are getting drafted around Watson right now, it's pretty wild to me. 2 slots ahead, you've got another vertical threat. His name's Jameson Williams. He plays on a much better offense, and he's a much better player. You could, if you want the vertical threat, if that's who you're chasing, you could wait an entire round and draft Brian Thomas Jr., who plays on a much better offense and is a much better talent. If you want another wide receiver, 1 spot ahead of him, I don't know, some guy named Mike Evans, who's about to play in a much better offense and is a much better talent. I don't know. Maybe you could think about waiting an entire round and drafting guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Carnell Tate, who are much better talents. If you want a running back, maybe you could draft a guy like Travion Henderson, who just showed massive explosiveness as a rookie, and we expect to ramp up his touches in a much better offense. If you want a running back, maybe you could take a guy like Bashal Tutin, who we expect to see an uptick in touches in a much better offense. Maybe you've already taken some wide receivers and you're looking for quarterback at this time. You could take some guys named Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Caleb Williams. If you want a tight end, guess what? You could take the alpha in his offense, Tucker Kraft. Guess what? You could take a guy named Harold Fannin, who's going to get 100 plus targets. Christian Watson isn't getting 100 plus targets. You can't explain to me why we're drafting Christian Watson in this range when I just named a laundry list of dudes who I am strongly confident that they will outscore Christian Watson, but not Christian McCaffrey.
I can explain it.
Go ahead.
Because of the vacated targets, Dontavian Wicks leaving, Romeo Doubs leaving, and everybody not having any faith in Jaden Reed and thinking that Christian Watson is going to be the main target getter that's not Tucker Kraft in that offense. Most people think that Tucker Kraft is going to be the target leader, but everybody is thinking that Christian Watson, because of his per catch efficiency, is going to have all those vacated targets, and that's going to jump him up. I got him in the 6th round in the fishbowl. That was like what I was gonna, but he's in redraft right now without 20 plus 20-yard catch.
That's what I was gonna say. You get those huge bonuses there,
right? Without those bonuses, he's going in the top of the 5th round in redraft, and that I agree with you is not where you want to be taking Christian Watson. Not yet, at least. We can revisit this next year if he has 120 targets, but that's not necessarily going to happen.
Yeah, I think shows like us, we steamed him up for the last 2 months, right? And now the price is kind of where it is, and now that's kind of like steep, right? Because of all the question marks around him, right? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and I want to kind of like point out to the viewers, there are a couple different kinds of analysis that you've heard on this show. There are data-driven stats, like something that somebody has done throughout their history, and then there's wish casting. And whether that is wish casting in a positive or negative way, I'm not making that distinction. I'm saying we take situational analysis, we take team structure, we take coaching changes, we take those things into consideration, and then we wish cast. This is what we think is going to happen, and then we make our choices in the draft based on those things. And there are things that are data driven, where somebody has never earned more than 100 targets, 120 targets in their career. It's not, you shouldn't be likely to expect them to do so. Then you have the statistical history of running backs who at a certain age start falling off cliffs. Then you have the statistical history of running backs at a certain production level falling off a cliff. So these are all things that we take into consideration, and they are all valid analyses.
Your valid analyses. Yeah, I love it, man. Way to wrap up the show there, bigz. That was a great segue into what you got to say about, what we got going on here on the network.
Yeah. Like, for example, I'm wish casting with Josh Jacobs. All statistical indicators are he's going to have a smash season. I'm wish casting the fact that I don't know if he's going to play. So,
yeah. I mean,
go ahead and like, subscribe, hit the bell, follow us on the interwebs places. Go to fantasysportsadvice.com. It's a really, really good community. Get involved there. Sellout Crowds. Buy our merch at FSAN.com or fantasysportsadvice.com. Go to Sellout Crowds for the community. Watch all of our YouTube channels and shows and stuff. Like and subscribe, hit the bell. I already said that. Comment in the comment section. We are getting close. We are getting very, very close to picking out our jerseys for Jersey Leagues, you guys. We're getting close. So make sure that you have the FSAN Pro membership so that you can come play against us and try and win that autographed jersey. Nobody's taking my JSN autographed jersey away from me. It's in my closet, and you'll have to get through me and my dog if you want to come get it. But if you want the one that I'm putting up this year, just come into the Fantasy League and beat me, and then you can have it.
Biggs wins a lot of jerseys. The guy has a Jamar Chase signed jersey that he won at the Football Guys Poker Tournament at the Expo a couple of years ago. That's a monster one. And then a JSN one. Guy just keeps winning and winning. And if you want to keep winning, stay tuned to us because Biggs,
FSAN, we help you win.
we help you win, folks. Peace out. See you next week.